Hey everyone, Ben here from Stellar Work. I'm particularly excited about today's episode because I'm joined by José Casal. José was one of the first people to introduce me to the world of Kanban, effectively bridging the gap between software development and my roots in production planning and lean management. He also paved the way for me to become an accredited Kanban trainer with the Kanban University. So without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Hey José, good having you here.
Hello, hi Benjamin, how are you? Thank you for
I'm
having me.
good, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Enjoying the summer here in Finland. Unseasonably hot. Um,
Are you recovering from the lean agile in London?
it might take a little bit longer. I mean, it's organizing a conference takes months of effort every year. So it was last week. It was a fantastic week, but yeah, I probably need a few more days to rest.
I can imagine. Who was the headliner? Who gave the keynote on it?
We have a number of keynotes. So we did a keynote with Paweł Wronczynski from Lunar Logic in Poland. Um, Really interesting talk. He was doing his 20 years of experience doing product and how we kind of like get it wrong. Um, it was really, really good, very insightful. We also had Ines Garcia, who is behind, I'm going to get it wrong now, Agile Alliance Manifesto for Sustainability and Agile and so on. So a talk on sustainability, the future of the planet, how Agile can help there. It was a very inspiring talk as well. And then we had Al Scotland doing a talk. He called it like "That's Not My Agile." And talking, it was really, really funny to how he angled it, how he positioned it. But just talking again about his experience with agility, where agility is going, what works, and so on.
He is
And then,
such a good speaker. He is really
yeah,
good. I managed to see him once. I was really blown away.
yeah, he's always very good. I mean, the three of them were very, very good. And we ended up with a panel discussion talking about the future of agility. So that was good. Yeah, we're getting the videos now, so I'm looking forward to seeing them while my head is actually focused on the talks rather than just on organizing the conference and fixing things.
Yeah, maybe we can get the links to those videos in the show notes below. So if you want, you can continue listening to this podcast, but then jump down on your player, check out the show notes, and then go with that from there. So where are we going with agility? So what were the findings that you've had?
I mean, I think it froze for a second. I didn't hear the question.
I asked what were your findings from the panel talk? Like, where are we going with agility?
I think agility. It's finding we're having a moment of deep reflection, put it this way. Yeah.
Hmm.
We are transitioning from the early years of agility, and early years is, yeah, we're talking about 20 something, 30 years now. But I think we are now entering a new phase which is going to be, I hate to use the word mature, but we're entering a new phase where we are becoming more aware of the challenges, becoming a lot more effective in doing things. We are leaving the focus on team agility, and we are focusing a lot more about how to make organizations be more successful. So there were conversations about things that we got wrong, things that we need to reflect on, things that we need to really stop doing, and things that we don't know how to do yet. So,
But doesn't sound too bad, right? It finally sounds like we're going full circle on the hype cycle
yeah,
and really consolidating to providing more value with what we're doing.
yeah. This is my personal opinion. Is like I think the age of agility hasn't reached yet. We're still in the very early stages. I usually like to draw a parallel with we use what happens with industrial revolution and manufacturing. By the time that things like Taylorism, Ford, scientific management arrived, we have been like about a journey of about 100 years of industrialization. And then there was this thing that kind of like helped do a step change in how we do things. And you follow on 100 years later, and what a manufacturing environment looks like today with all these robotic environments, automation, all the Toyota, whatever, lean, all those things. We forget that that's a 200-year kind of like journey. In the knowledge work, we're still at very, very early stages. I mean, we've been doing knowledge work per se, as we call it. We could go back to the 50s or 60s, the very early stages. Agile is one of those early things that came and said, "Whoa, we need to do things differently." But this kind of like, I think that the future of agility, the how we will actually do work in the knowledge industry and the knowledge world, I don't think we have figured it out. We're still trying to translate manufacturing into knowledge work, rather than really getting a way of saying, okay, what is the native way of doing things properly as well. We kind of like know, but we don't practice it. We kind of like have ideas, but we really don't have an overriding agreement of what that looks like.
Jose, we jumped right into it, and I need to remember myself that for everyone listening out there, we had the chance to meet, we had the chance to work together, but maybe people listening to this don't know you yet. So could you give us a brief introduction of who you are and what you're doing?
So, God, I always struggle with this. Obviously, I'm José Casal. I'm originally from Spain, as the Jose probably indicates. I lived in the UK for many years until Brexit and the pandemic arrived. Now I live in Finland. But my experience with Agile is I discovered the word Agile in 2003, so very very early on. And ever since, I've been working as a developer in Agile, then helping organizations become better as a development manager and so on, and eventually coaching people. So very much worked in the Kanban space most of my life, my professional life. I've then done things like flight levels, a lot of work with business agility, helping organizations beyond IT, so helping organizations become agile. And I've done a lot of work with training from the back of a room. So how do we educate and facilitate and design learning experiences better? That's
And you
about
were
it.
the trainer who supported me on my personal journey to become an accredited Kanban trainer with the Kanban University.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
when we met in London. I think it was Camden Lock.
He was in London. He was Camden Lock. Now I'm trying to remember the year. Probably 2007.
Could be
So around there.
pretty long time ago.
Plus
I just
minus 10
remember
years.
being in that hotel basement
Yes.
10 hours of the day.
Yes.
No daylight, nothing. And
Yes.
then after
Talk about
6, getting
choices.
wasted in the
Yeah.
pub just across the street with James Scrimshire.
Hmm.
Yeah. Good times. Good times.
Yes. Except for the basement for 10 hours with no natural
Yeah.
light.
So jumping back
Choices.
to where we started before, it's so interesting what happens with agility nowadays. So yesterday I was just recording last episode with Joe Justice, who worked at Tesla,
Hmm.
and what he told me pretty much matches to what I see at other companies. So it doesn't matter if you look at Meta or Alphabet or Tesla, SpaceX, you name it, they don't really have the classical agile things that you would assume those companies have. They don't really have scrum masters. They don't really have agile coaches. They
Hmm.
don't really have that. Sometimes they don't even have like scrum teams, but they are
Yeah.
still very agile in a way that they try to and manage to adopt to market changes very rapidly. And I
Hmm.
think that's a very interesting thing that you don't see them on the bandwagon of certifications, new roles, and weird titles that nobody knows what they really mean. They don't have like release train architectural engineers, you name it. But they're
Yeah.
still pretty adaptable and very fast. And I think that's really interesting. So what do you think is happening there? Are we seeing a downturn in certification roles and rigid frameworks?
There is a number of things that I'm picking there. I did cause a minor storm on LinkedIn a few months ago because I make a distinction between agile and agility. So when we talk about agile, the manifesto, probably the whole industrial thing around it. Agile is useful, it's needed, we need to do it. But agility is a different thing. Agility is a characteristic that we exhibit in our organizations and our people. Okay. So what is interesting for me is the tragedy of of agility is that when we have it, when we achieve it, we don't need to talk about it. So I would say that the ultimate result of agility is that we don't talk about it anymore. We don't pay attention to it. So there are organizations that the most agile organizations, or the most organizations that exhibit agility, are probably ones that have figured out how to achieve that for themselves on their own without moving beyond frameworks, moving beyond things. They just do things that work for them, and that enables them to be adaptive and responsive and anticipating issues and so on. So I'm not surprised when some companies which are very much, they exhibit all these characteristics of agility, they don't speak about agile. And I think because it's just something that they do, they are. Yeah. Why we spoke about agile is because we're still going on. We're still trying to achieve it. We're still trying to go in that direction. Yeah. Now, I don't agree with this thing about when you hear people like, oh, certification bad, whatever. You know what? Usually the people that talk about certification in a negative way are people that don't need the certification. Yeah. The people that need certification, and many times certification is a way of saying, and again, we conflate things. We need to learn. We need to understand what agility is about. I will never want my doctor to be someone that has not been trained to do surgery, for example, or in medicine.
Hmm.
Yeah. Similarly, when we're doing change, when we're doing improvement in the organization, when we're doing things like organizational design, I will hope that the person that is advising my organization to do these kind of things has a basic understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some companies, if you want to work with them, they even require you to have certifications. So if you have like a IT company and you want to work with BMW, they will
Yeah.
ask you for that certification.
Yeah, because it's a proof that at least you have done something about it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Now, where we get wrong is that we say, okay, well, you've done a 2-day CSM class or PSM class or something like that, and now you can act as a change agent for my organization. Well, no,
Yeah.
you just attended a 2-day class, so that's a basic introduction to understand the concepts. Now you need to build the muscle memory. Now you need to build the practice. Now you need to get all the scars. Yeah, and then there might be other things that you could say to prove. I mean, there are some courses out there, like for example, like a flight levels coaching program takes 6 months. It's very practical, very much in at work, experiential thing. By the time that you end up with the flight levels coaching certification, I will say that person has done enough work to understand what they're talking about. Yeah. So there are very different things. I mean, I will criticize a 2-day class. People want to say, I'm now a Scrum Master. I'm now a product person. No, you're not yet, but you have done the basic learning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's something with things that we have abused, and it's not the certification bodies. The certification bodies may be wrong here. The people that go and say, I've done a 2-day class, I am now a master, are wrong, potentially. These are abusing it. But it's also the companies that go and say, yeah, you've done a 2-day class, fantastic, come and change my company. Yeah, why are we buying that? So,
Speaking of 2-day classes and then being approved to change a whole company, what is your take on the whole AI thing where people put out like AI meets Agile, Scrum and AI? If you see the Scrum
um,
Alliance, if you see the Scrum Org, if you take a look at other certification institutes, they all run AI classes and mixing them up with Agile practices now. Have you seen that?
I have seen that. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing, because when ChatGPT 3 came, for example, suddenly you could see all these people saying, I know a lot about AI. And like,
Hmm.
you probably haven't had enough time to know a lot about AI. So AI is here and it's not going to go anywhere. At the moment, I think AI, it can be a fantastic companion to the things that we do. It can actually help us to augment our jobs, our capacity, our impact. It's kind of like, I define it as a first year undergraduate researcher that can do a lot of the heavy lifting, but probably is going to get a lot of things wrong. Yeah. So when I see people taking AI and just like copy and paste, it's like, oh, you're taking a risk here. Yeah. But it can do a lot of that kind of like heavy lifting research kind of thing. But that, please check what it's saying. it's moving really fast, and it's going to really, really transform how we do our work in the knowledge space. But on the other hand, when I see organizations going and saying we don't need this type of worker because we have AI, I actually think that they're mad right now.
Yeah, I think
It's
so
not
as well.
and again, with AI, there is a lot of experts who I don't think they have time. They have had enough time to be experts. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Um,
the real experts on AI have been quiet for at least like 10 or 15 years, and now
yeah.
they're getting attention, right? But they're in some research facility in some university.
Yeah.
They're probably not on LinkedIn shooting 4K videos and uploading them on social media.
And they are not in. I don't. I think there might be very, 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 maybe a handful of
Mm,
people that maybe in the agile space that have had those 5 to 10 years of agility of AI work behind them.
yeah.
Yeah. But on the other hand, as well, I've seen some people use of AI, which when I see it is like, my God, I don't know what I'm doing. But
Mm,
you do something that you think, okay, I'm doing good stuff. And then you see someone else using it and thinking, God, I am so rudimentary in my use of AI. And again, so there is a lot of things that can be done, and maybe it could be my own ignorance about it. But I just don't. I I feel skeptical. Like I get skeptical with someone that has done agility for a few months and they are talking as experts. Same thing with AI. I'm skeptical of claiming expertise in a very short span of period.
mm. So the only thing that I've seen really impacting the way agile teams collaborate or the way agile
Mm-hmm.
has been used with AI is have you had the chance to take a look at the GitHub Copilot stuff and the coding supports?
A little bit. A little bit.
That is insane.
Yeah.
So from what I've seen, pair programming will be the norm.
Yeah.
There will be no more lonely programming anymore. You'll
Yeah.
never code alone. You always have at
Mm-hmm.
least a robot on your side asking
Yeah.
you, "Hey, are you trying to program a payment service here?" And
Yeah.
you would say, "Yeah." And they'll go, "So maybe use this block of code. Maybe you
Yeah.
want to insert it here, right?" And I think
Where
that is fantastic.
that's fantastic, although I'm gonna throw a bit of caution here
Hmm.
because where I hope we don't go too far in one extreme is that most acts of creativity require an intellectual exchange between usually until now two human beings, at least, or more than two human beings. Um, I don't know if AI can create the conditions that creativity can happen the way it is today. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years time, it might be. But today, when we do the training, usually when we are advising coaching and coaching new coaches, we usually say, um, every time you give the answer, you are robbing someone from the opportunity to learn that answer themselves. So many times I create the conditions for people to learn the answers. If you have Copilot saying you're trying to do this, maybe this is not wrong, here is a better piece of code, it has come up with all the answer. And probably there is no feedback loop that says, okay, how could I have come up with that answer myself? It has been just presented to you as an answer.
Yeah. But
So
that isn't a typical AI issue. I think we see
yeah,
the same thing with people struggling on a certain code problem, and then they
yeah,
would go to Stack Overflow and just copy
yeah,
paste code, right?
yeah, yeah. Or they go to the expert in the organization that says, oh yeah, I know how to fix it. This
Yeah,
is the code that you need.
yeah,
When we do those things, we are actually hindering people's ability to do that learning, to do that discovery. Basically, we end up parroting what someone else has told us.
Hmm.
It's a possible approach. It's not that it's invalid, but it's really if we rely only on that, it's very difficult to create independent thinking, creative thinking, all that stuff. We end up relying on Stack Overflow all the time, or I'm gonna call Bob because there is always a Bob in a company. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So it's that kind of situation. And now it could happen with Copilot as well, even more powerful than Stack Overflow, where it's like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm seeking, rather than I'm seeking understanding and learning, I will seek answers. And that's the thing. When we're just seeking the answers, we are taking a step,
Hmm.
a leap forward.
And if you have it always on, it's not like you're seeking the answers, but you're getting it presented to you, even if you don't want it. Even if
Yeah.
you're just in the zone, and then you would have like the co-pilot asking you, "Hey, do you want to try this? Do you want on your journey to build that?" And yeah,
Yeah.
true.
And it might stop us from even coming up with answers that might be better what the copilot can do today,
Hmm.
which is possible. You know what I mean? It's just although it's useful at the moment, that copilot has to, hey, you know that, okay, you just saved me half an hour, you just saved me 3 hours. But what is the cumulative effect for us as personal career, personal development, if 20 years later, all these micro moments of not doing our own learning and our own independent thinking, what kind of professional will be 20 years later? I leave the question open because I don't know, but I wonder.
Yeah, nobody knows. It's $1 million question.
But it's the thing.
Another.
What happened with the mobile phones. These devices. That it. I always say this is my new brain. It's really really powerful. Yeah, of course it is. But 20 years on, you could argue that it has stolen our focus, stolen a lot of our. It has caused a lot of side effects that no one could predict in 2007. Well, no one in the general public could predict those. So again, with AI, with this kind of like extremely powerful technologies, we need to be always mindful about what will be the unintended consequences, and there will be unintended consequences.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to keep our brain awake and saying like, okay, what's this causing on me and our society?
Yeah, and I mean, there's also this narrative. I don't know if you've heard it, but that it's basically saying that we're already cyborgs. It's just that we have no like bloodstream connection to the device yet. We just need to type it, but we're already cyborgs because we're always on the phone. We have a digital existence out there.
Mm-hmm.
We have like wearables, like a Apple Watch, so to say,
Mm-hmm.
and we're already cyborgs.
Mm-hmm. We are, yeah. I mean, it's really really powerful. Yeah. At the moment, all this technology is in some ways is augmenting human capability, but there's
Hmm.
is externalized. At one point, it will be internalized, but uh, how, when, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll
I mean,
see.
interesting times, and of course, then we have other issues about how do we fix our planet and everything.
Speaking of fixing things, one thing that I really love to cover in this podcast is the different approaches people take on transforming companies.
Mm-hmm.
So we had so much time to talk about the Kanban method, and there have been so many years between our time in London and today. I'm really curious what your learnings and your takeaways on your journey so far were on how to, like, if you take a look at a legacy company, how would you approach a business or an agile transformation on a legacy company out of your experience?
Great question with far too many answers to start. The most important of it is that every company is going to be its own. So we might have an idea of repeating patterns that we see in organizations, but the solutions are going to be to some extent pretty unique. Um, when you see people like saying, "Hey, Spotify did this," everybody tries to be like a Spotify, and you're like, "No, you're not a Swedish organization in the record industry with tons of money." Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to copy them? Yeah. And now this is happening with other things. I mean, you mentioned things like Tesla and stuff like that. And if people want to be like Tesla or SpaceX, like, no, you're not doing rockets or you're not doing EVs, the electrical vehicles, and so on. Yeah. So, but the patterns are repeating. I mean, many times the patterns are repeating, and the most important thing that we need to do is to really understand what's the context that the organization has. What are the more pressing challenges? There are going to be things like when I work with senior managers, typically and CXOs, and so many of them are saying, we don't really know what's happening in our organization. We know there is a lot of movement. We have a lot of expectations. We know that there is a number of initiatives in progress, but we don't actually know what's happening. And we don't know often we don't know what the impact is of what we're doing or when things are going to happen. Yeah. So organizations already have ways of trying to do this. They will be doing things like a strategic planning. They will be doing all sorts of things about like how we communicate initiatives, how do we select initiatives, things like portfolio management, product management, all those things. But we are not doing them in an effective way. And most of the time, I would say, is because we're trying to run organizations as if they were factories, and most of our organizations are not factories.
What do you mean with that? Can you give us a little bit more insight on it?
So we pick them. We are running organizations and managing organizations as if we were in a production line. So the production environments tend to be, using Cynefin terminology, they tend to be order organizations. So like what you put through the production line, you tend to spec that out of the production line. So you put if you're doing a car manufacturing, highly technical, highly challenging thing to do, but at the end of a production line, you expect a car that can roll off into the roads. Yeah, that's an ordered environment. That's a complicated environment. We tend to get what we set out to achieve. In knowledge environments, we don't. The level of uncertainty, I mean, I use the words the VUCA terminology, the level of uncertainty and complexity and ambiguity, we set out to do things. What comes out of a pipeline could be very different. And we know that we're going to get it wrong and we're going to have to adapt it. And that's what we talk about adaptive organizations and so on. So what I see many times with how we run organizations and how we run agile transformations is that we're using that kind of manufacturing thinking. We're seeking certainty and predictability and assurances and so on in an environment which does not have those characteristics. So in complex organizations, we need to have more of a flow-based thinking, flow management. Yeah, that's things like Lean, Kanban, flow thinking, systems thinking, flight levels are very powerful ways of running the organization and running change, because we are, I'm going to quote Klaus, we only have our current state of misunderstanding. Klaus is Klaus Leopold. So we know that we are going to be constantly learning new things and often having to change our mind. So that kind of environment is very powerful. I don't know if I'm answering the question now. I'm going into different.
I think so. Although I totally agree with you that it's a bit of an unfair question because it's so context related, and I think
what I wouldn't do is at the beginning of any transformation to say this is the transformation plan, and we're more or less, I mean, some agile transformations is like, oh, we got 3 years to do this. This is the blueprint. This is the agile operating model. This is the big picture, whatever the picture looks like. We will be this organization at the end of 3 years. If that happens on year 1, honestly, stop the project now. Save yourself a lot of pain and money, because that has never really worked.
You think so? I would disagree. I would say that you would need a plan and a blueprint. You don't have to stick with it. You shouldn't stick with it, right? But you have to have a sort of idea that you can communicate, create a kind of clarity and vision on where you want to go, right?
You need to have a sense of direction. You need to communicate what success looks like, what the future looks like, but that's not the same as a plan. So an idea of this, as an organization, we're striving to achieve this, and I might have some high level patterns of what we want to achieve, or some level, things that we want to achieve, outcomes we want to achieve. Absolutely. Otherwise, we're directionless. So that's kind of like a North Star that is guiding us, but you know that you are never going to reach that North Star. The more you walk, the star keeps being pointing north, hopefully. Yeah. So yes, we need to have something that guides us in decision making, but I wouldn't go to the point where I see organizations having even a high level 3-year plan.
Yeah.
But by the end of November, 20% of our people will have become agile. It's like, what? How are you going to do that? Are you going to like insert agility knowledge here?
Yeah. Yeah, they have that small microchips
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Bill Gates that would no, just kidding.
Yeah. As far as I know, I haven't discovered that. Where do I have that port? But
It's on LinkedIn. You scroll down to certifications and credentials, and you see the microchip list.
yeah. But many times we see things like that. I mean, I was a few years ago talking to a bank in the UK where it was this thing, by in 6 months' time, 60% of the technology department will be agile. And you were like, you are going to achieve that. Oh, we will do all this training. It's like, that's not going to deliver. It's, that's the kind of thing that is like, this is not going to work. Of course, it didn't work.
Yeah. That very much reminds me of my last client. That was a big company, and they were asking me, so, hey, Ben, we need an agile coach for our leadership team because we're saying that everyone in the company needs to become agile. Our framework is the Scrum framework, and we as a leadership team would want to present us with a good example and also work with Scrum.
Yeah.
And they asked me to be their Scrum master. I was like, okay, but we'll have to figure out what that really means. And so I started with doing a lot of interviews and asking people and then following the different steps of work. So where does it come from? Where does it go? Who's contributing what? And what I implemented from there on wasn't really Scrum or even, I wouldn't even consider it Agile. What I found out was that they have no overview over their capacities. So we fixed that. They have no portfolio management. So overview of the different things that were going on into that organization. And therefore they have priorities, but they were unable to execute the priorities because they have no overview.
Yeah.
So when we made a portfolio transparent, we could make portfolio management, and then we could talk about and have those difficult discussions about prioritization. But I wouldn't consider all of that really introducing agile methodologies, Scrum Master work, agile coach work. So when I started my career, I started with a PMI, a body of knowledge. So I'm coming from a classical consultancy background. I started at a spin-off out of Accenture, working in the project management office with PMI standards. And I wouldn't really consider that super agile. I would think that those are things that company need to do, although they're not in a Scrum guide somewhere, right?
Yeah. And I mean, there is a lot of body of knowledge which is valid and beyond the agile and the agile world. But what we need to do is to use them effectively for the kind of environments that we have. I mean, like portfolio management, it's absolutely necessary, as you say. Yeah. But it's got to be done in a way that enables the flow of work, enables the decision making in a complex environment. What we have is portfolio management, which is a 3-year Gantt chart. All right, that's not going to help. Yeah. So there are things that are useful. It's how we use those things as well. Yeah. You just reminded me of a company I was working a few years ago with the board, and same thing. They couldn't know how much work and what work was actually on the go, because they had made all these decisions, they had been authorizing all these things, they didn't understand the capacity they had. And all these decisions have become work which were all over the place. They were sometimes in people's heads, in Excel files, in some PowerPoint presentations. They had no common visualization. And
it's pretty much like losing the steering wheel.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not able to hold it in any way if you don't have the overview of what's happening.
Absolutely. And the thing is that in that context, then adding a new project or adding a new initiative or launching a new product, it's feasible because it sounds like it's possible to do it. Now, I remember taking this group to an offsite workshop we went to Marseille. And when we actually started to collect all the information, all the things that they had on the go, they ended up with 135 ongoing initiatives in this organization. Yeah. And it was like, okay, great. How many teams do we have? How many teams are involved in delivering these initiatives? And it was like, I don't remember the exact number, it was around 17 teams. It was less than 20. Yeah. And it's like, okay, do you see the problem? Because that problem was we cannot deliver anything in a timely fashion and without mistakes and without
Mm.
lots of fixes and things like that. It's like, don't you see the problem? You have something like, I don't know the number now, the ratio, but you have like something like 5 projects per team,
Yeah.
5 items here. Some of them were chunky strategic stuff that will take months or even years to deliver. Yeah. It's like, this is what you're doing. You're basically, my colleague JP Bailey talks about like causing a denial of service attack on your own organization.
Mm. Oh, yeah, that's a very good
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah.
You have so much work on the go that you're constantly interrupting each other in order to get some progress reported on all these 135 items. So what's happening at the bottom layer of organization, the delivery layer or delivery end of the organization, is that their life is interruptions, a tsunami of work because someone has shouted somewhere.
Mm.
They're not structuring the organization for flow. We'll make the right decisions, have strategic conversations. That needs to lead to a coordination conversation, dependency management, then eventually goes to delivery focus. The organizations are not doing that well. And that's what the transformation really looks for me. It's about getting that kind of like the work integrated, the decision making integrated, the communications integrated in an
But
effective way.
how would you approach a situation where you see a portfolio overflow and just too much work in progress? How would you approach that?
First thing is visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
So with the visualization in the, I will always remember the faces in Marseille, because I mean you had like the general manager of the company going kind of like expression.
Yeah, but that's pretty good.
Um, yeah. Then the conversation went straight away. Is like, okay, this is the problem. You are unable to focus on this. And what happens with most organizations? When you ask organizations, when do you work at your best? And they say, oh, when we're in a crisis mode. It's not that they work well in a crisis, it's that when they're in a crisis, they achieve focus.
Hmm.
So many companies become addicted to created crisis, because it's
Yeah.
the only way they can get focus.
Yeah.
So the step 2 is like, okay, you have 135, you got 17 teams. What will happen if we go down? Could we pause everything and just pick the top 15 projects? Yeah. How can we actually just focus on a smaller amount of work that we can manage this? Stuff like that. Yeah. Then what do you do? I mean, they're doing all these things without metrics, without any measurements, either technical measurements like flow metrics or business measurements, as in how do you measure success? Yeah. So I will introduce things like, business metrics, flow metrics, and so on. Next one is, okay, how and where do you have the right communications, the right interactions between people? Yeah. How effective are all these meetings that you're running? You have a lot of meetings to try to run your organization. How effectively is this? Do you have the right people in the room? Do they happen with the right frequency? Do you have the right conversations? I'm using the word right too many times, but it's trying to create a better, talk about like, business interactions.
Mm-hmm.
We have individuals and interactions. Interaction design is not something we do well. And, with those things, then just keep improving, put it in place, improve. Yeah. That for me is the engine of transformation.
Yeah.
Transparent, visualization, focus generation, measurement, interaction design, and then some sort of reflection, improvement mechanism.
You just answered a question that was stuck in my mind a long time ago. It's for a long time. It was, why am I in love with crisis so much? Because I personally really enjoy crisis.
Yes.
Not all types of crisis, but business-related crises are more often a chance than a burden. And I think it's because a crisis bluntly shows clarity on the prioritizations.
Yes.
So if your bank account is low, that's the thing you need to fix, right? That's the thing you need to focus. And when you're asking, do we need that project? Do we launch that project? You can ask, how does it impact our cash flow?
Yes.
Positively, good. Negatively, not good. We don't know, we don't do it.
Yeah. To me, when an organization is facing a crisis, it has two advantages and a third one which is not really good. But the two advantages are, one is the focus, everything else disappears, and the other one is obviously the sense of urgency. So when we have a real sense of urgency, lots of things happen. I've been watching people in the Agile community talking about, for example, how transformative the war in Ukraine has been for Ukrainian companies and the military and so on, and how agility has helped them. They have a real sense of urgency. They're in the middle of a war. Yeah. So I'm not saying that we need wars, but what I'm saying is that the sense of urgency, it's a great enabler for change. And
Where
I've
is
been in
that published? Like your reference, where could I find that?
Arten Vykovets did a keynote for us in Agile London, and there is a few others. I'm not going to remember
Okay,
the exact.
I'm trying to figure it out and put it in the show
We'll share
notes.
it on chat. We'll share it, yeah. But there is some. I know two excellent keynotes about like how this sense of urgency has generated a lot of like very, very meaningful, impactful change. So yes, urgency and focus. The third one is that, and in a crisis, we have a hero culture sometimes. It gives us a whole sense of like, chemicals in our body when we fix things. So sometimes we get addicted to that as well. We get addicted to the sense of achievement. I would like that we could do that without a crisis.
Yeah.
Because what happens in most organizations is that nothing gets delivered properly except in a crisis. So when it happens in the crisis, we love that. We get rewarded, we get applauded, we get, whatever. We become addicted to that. That's why I say many companies are addicted to work in crisis mode. How could we achieve the same without having to have a crisis? Real or fake?
Yeah. I also think that when a company is in a crisis, it creates a lot of stress, and not every human being reacts on that type of stress in a way that they want to achieve, they want to improve, because it's fight or flight, right? And people choosing fight are trying to make the system better, which is also like you're not always succeeding doing that, and it's also very exhausting. People choosing flight are not really able to contribute in such a big crisis because they're overwhelmed with the responsibility, with everything that's on stake, basically.
Yeah, I make a distinction between stress. There are kind of like two types of stress. There is eustress. The word eu from prefix eu from Greek is good, and distress. This is negative, is bad. So we have eustress and distress. Eustress is actually good. Is when you feel stretched, when you feel energized, when you have a buzz, when there is something that is challenging, but you feel that you can achieve it. We actually love that as human beings. It connects to things like Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi and the flow channel, where I have enough of a challenge, but I have enough of skills to do this.
Yeah, so it's what you get when you play a game, right?
Yeah,
that's what you want to achieve.
Exactly. So that's kind of like we call this the stretch zone. Having a feeling stretched is good. If we're in the comfort zone, nothing happens. We're not learning, we're not improving, we're not growing. And that's not being human. Yeah. So we need to be in the stretch zone. The problem what we do with other things is that when we get the stress is when we go to the distress zone. Is what we get there is anxiety and fear and paralysis and all those things. Yeah. We start not trusting other people. So the in many organizations, the real challenge many times is creating at a humanistic level an organization which is stretching its people but without distressing its people. And many organizations we end up in anxiety with huge level of anxiety and stress because we are just not managing this well. And knowledge work, this is our engine. If this engine is stressed, forget it. There is nothing we can do properly. Yeah. So we need to get this engine buzzing.
All right. Talking about getting this engine buzzing, I'm looking at the clock now and I have a couple of meetings ahead. Let's continue this conversation in another episode because I think that will keep us busy for quite some time.
We
and
probably
that won't go away pretty soon. Just go on, put on the news and So that's here to stay, I guess.
Right.
Um, Jose, thank you so much for joining in on the episode.
Yeah.
If people would like to get in touch with you and follow your content, where can they find you?
Probably the best way these days is LinkedIn. So if
Hmm.
you for my name, Jose Casal in LinkedIn, usually you see this face somewhere there. We can share the link as well.
Yeah, everything will be in the show notes below. So if you want to continue the conversation, just check out the show notes, click on the link, and let's meet in the chat on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me, and it's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed this.
Awesome. Me too. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey everyone. Thank you so much for staying with us to the very end of today's episode. We're glad you enjoyed it. We would greatly appreciate if you could provide some feedback through the Spotify feedback form, rate us 5 stars in your player, or consider reaching out to us via LinkedIn. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Stellar Work LinkedIn page or within your podcasting app so you never miss an upcoming episode. Bye.
Hey Jose, it's good to have you here, bringing clarity with your wisdom so clear. From London to Finland, basking in the sun, sharing agile insights, teaching everyone. Clean agile's been a wild ride, keynotes and pedals, keeping the fire alive with power, Linus and Carl, sending the bar, talking sustainability. Agile shining star. José Casal, master of the Kanban flow, teaching us the way, rocking every show. With Kanban University, spreading knowledge wide. José Casal, our Agile guide. Agility's evolving from the past to now, maturing, finding ways, discovering how. Kanban's leading, visualizing, working great. Jose's guidance lighting up the way. Agility's journey has just begun. Kanban's principles under the agile sun. From team focus to organizational flow. Jose's insights help us all to grow. José Casal, master of the Kanban flow, teaching us the way, rocking every show. With Kanban University, spreading knowledge wide. José Casal, our Agile guide. Unlimited journey has just begun. Kanban's principles under the agile sun. From team focus to organizational flow. Jose's insights help us all to grow. José Casal, master of the Kanban flow, teaching us the way, rocking every show. With Kanban University, spreading knowledge wide. José Casal, our Agile guide. So if you need a guide, look no further. José Casal will help you till the end. With wisdom and insight, he'll show the way. In the world of Kanban, he's here to stay. So if you need a guide, look no